It's awesome. This war that you're in, you've been doing the Western Welding Academy. Pretty unconventional. I don't know very many people who, start an academy actually and put the investment forth. I got to imagine that's a fairly big investment to get a facility up and running, and you got to get staff. And welders aren't cheap folks. I happen to employ some of them, and they're definitely make some really, really good money. And by the way, they deserve to make the really good money they do. That's what the market bears, a high wage for that. And so I bet, the staff comes at a pretty good premium, and the facility investment and all the trying to find the students. And now you got a good waiting list. What has this journey been like for you? Have you had some surprises along the way or anything like, I know you were a welder to start with, right? How
Right.
many years did you hit the field welding before you started this?
Yeah, 15 years. Yeah.
Okay. So 15 years out hard, and you were across the country, right? Working
Yeah.
all over the place?
I know, and I tell you, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I, I remember I was, I was listening to somebody complain about their job. This is, probably a year ago, and they were just talking about all these things that were happening to them. You're just real Debbie Downer. I'm not that guy. Like, if you want, if you want to hang out with Debbie Downers, that's not me, right? So, um, and I thought back, and I thought, I welded in the field for 15 years. I'm like, man, surely there was some crappy times, right? Like, there has to be in 15 years. And I could only, I was like, man, I was surprised at the lack of uh, crappy memories I had. There was one time in Washington State that it just pissed down rain. Uh, it seemed like every day that we were there. I remember that kind of sucked. There was a time when it was 20 below and the wind was blowing in North Dakota, and I was welding behind my truck to kind of block that wind, and my feet were getting really cold. That's all I could come up with. I loved every minute of it. I would have never left for a second. I made super killer insane money, and I was fulfilled every day out there. Because I was really fortunate. I got to work on everything from semiconductor, which is computer chip technology. That's really, really critical to our nation's infrastructure and computing power. I got to work in the oil field and the pipeline industries, and I got to work, breweries and powerhouses and all these different, like core staples of our nation's economy. And I don't know, I loved it. I would have never for a minute ever thought that, if you would ask me 10 years ago, there is no way ever I would have ever imagined to be in the place I'm in today. Uh, but a welder will travel, right? And that's where you make the most money, is traveling. And so I did a lot of traveling, and that got to be where it was really hard on my family and really hard on my wife. And so this was actually her idea, and I was like, there ain't no way. You know, I kind of got my head wrapped around it a little bit. I started putting some numbers and metrics. I'm obviously really data driven, and I thought, you know what, this will work. And then once we got into it and started doing it and started teaching people, and there was we created our own curriculum. Our big focus is work ethic, accountability, integrity. It's inevitable that you're going to learn how to weld. We're not trying to teach you to weld. We're trying to teach. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just you're taking me out of my chair here, Tyler, because you're talking about like an academy, a college that talks about like work things like that are like impactful things that you're going to hear about when you actually enter the workforce. Because I'm telling you, I went for 5 years to college to get my CPA, and I never once heard about the word accountability. I never this kind of stuff. You don't hear it in college.
No, right. Well, we and we went down this rabbit hole. Basically, and we started with saying what makes the best welder, right? And so, and I mean, give me a name. Like, don't tell me, a general. Give me a name. Let's look at this person. Like, where did they grow up? What created them? And I mean, I'm talking. We went really, really deep on this. We call them a data dive. We do them all the time, but we went really, really deep. This was a couple years ago. What we really found was they all had these traits, and like, really now, I was like, well, duh, like duh. But it was work ethic, They got up every day, put their work boots on, they went out there and hustled. They had accountability. That doesn't mean you're perfect, right? When you screw something up, just own it. Hey, I screwed that up. I learned from it. I'm gonna move on. I'm accountable for my actions. And they had integrity that they did what they said that they were going to do. And so that's when we really peeled that onion back. We realized we were not a welding school. Uh, we were a team of savage people that were really, really uh, driven. Our why. Simon Sinek's got a great book on understanding your why, right? And our why, our core focus, is to build a better generation. And how do we do that? We teach work ethic, accountability, and integrity. Bro, it's inevitable. You're going to learn how to weld if you come through our system. We're not worried about that. You know what I mean? And that's what the world needs is people that, and these are skills. I used to think like, wow, it's like a dog that'll hunt or not hunt. You're either born with it or you're not. That's not true. You are taught these skills. Work ethic is a learned skill. Accountability is a learned trait. Integrity, that's something you learn from your surroundings. And you go back through, the death of the family in our country is insane. Divorce rates are up. People are not getting married. So these kids are being raised by, strong fathers, strong daughters. There's a ton of different books about that out there you can read if somebody wants more information. But the really strong family unit, it produces people that believe in that. Well, when you destroy the family unit, you've got people that don't have these traits. It's just not inherently in them like it was 50 years ago, 100 years ago, right? And you look at the data, it all correlates back to this family unit. And so we've realized that if we're going to build a better generation to help our country economically, we're going to have to figure out a way to teach these traits, right? And it has to be measurable. You can't change what you can't measure. And so we put metrics on it. And at the very end, when that student graduates, they've got this final report, and it's like a scorecard. And we built that for the employer. So as an employer, we've got 12 questions we ask the employer. We've got this little, it's not actually little anymore, but we've got this group that only graduates have access to. So when the employer requests come in, they come in every single day. We ask them 12 questions, and then we post it in that group. It's a private group. And then when those people apply for that job, those employers know that I want to see that final report, because it's a snapshot. In 6 months that student's here, we know them, right? And it's a scorecard that's built out on their work ethic, their accountability, and their integrity, and their welding skill, right? But don't waste your time. Look at that final report, and if it's not what you want, just go to the next one.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess, a little bit about kind of
But in order
our
in order to
motivations.
teach somebody, Tyler, those types of things, you have to know it yourself, right? Or at least have experienced it. And obviously, when you hit the trades, those things like work ethic, accountability, and integrity are going to, if you don't have them, you're either not going to survive, or you're going to figure out how to acquire those at the employer's expense, right? Which
Right.
is probably what majority of the people have done. But for you, you obviously had that stuff, because you don't end up having credibility to start a welding school unless you have welding experience. You don't get the welding experience unless you have those three things to show to an employer when you go to work. Because as you know, when you're out on those pipelines, if you don't show up at 7 o'clock, well, no, you're not just trashing your day. You're trashing the 50 people that are behind you, right? Like
Right.
you're part of a team. That doesn't work. We don't get to be the customer, I don't know, American Airlines agent who just decided she has to work from home today, right? That's not an option
Right.
when you have a whole team relying on you. Do you feel like your family unit obviously was strong, and you must have had a good base to start with? And in that way, do you feel like you had like a leg up? Or was it more like, uh I don't know, how much of this was nurtured versus how much of it is just in a nature? Do you feel like
Mhm.
it's 100% nurture?
I think really it comes down to, nurture and nature, nurture and mentality. So like I I definitely, nurture plays a huge part of it, but um, I was really, really lucky. I come from a strong family unit. Like, um, I remember my dad yelling down the stairs every morning at 5 o'clock, get your crack out of bed. There's work to be done. Obviously that sucked at the time, but now I'm pretty thankful he did that. But the in mentalities, one of the things that I've been really, really blessed with, and I'm really, really fortunate to have, is a, a mentality that is more of a can do. I always see the glass as half full. I'm not a pessimist, um, overly optimistic, and one of my top guys the other day, he says, you have the greatest ideas. They're just at the wrong times, you know. and so but I think mentality plays a huge part. Now, I mean, you can find 1,000 resources if you realize that you have a more of a pessimistic, negative kind of mindset. That doesn't mean you can't be successful. Dude, there's a million people out there and a million books you can read how to change that mindset and mentality. And I don't know. I think it plays both. I mean, obviously, growing up in a strong family, um, you know, but then maybe I think it can go the other way too. That can breed into some sense of entitlement, right? Because if you are a product of a strong family, and you are a product of you've kind of got the edge, got the leg up, well, then that can breed into like, well, now I deserve this, or I expect this, or and I think that's super damaging place to be in. Like, you're entitled to nothing. Go out there and kill it and drag it home. Then you can eat it, but don't
Yeah.
expect somebody else to, I don't know that. And that's something that really is in the youth, this, that, and it's not their fault. The youth is a product of the world that we created. Right. And I think that's the first step that a lot of people need to understand is that it's so common for people to say, oh, well, these people are idiots, or they're not, we're screwed, or this ain't, no, they're just a product of the world we created for them. And they grew up in an Amazon instant gratification, social media world. Uh, why would we think that they want to actually work for anything? No, like, and until we open our mouth and just really communicate to them, like, this is what's expected of you. It always feels really good to tell people, hey, you're doing a great job, right? But it's like doubly important. It's twice as important to tell them when they're not doing a good job. And we live in a world of participation trophies, and everybody gets a pat on the back, and that's not reality. Like, there's gonna be mud in the trench at some point when you crawl in there. That's why rubber boots were invented. There's days it's going to rain. you know it's gonna suck sometimes, and if you're not used to uh, somebody coming up, and there's ways to do it, right? There's a disrespectful way to do it, and then there's a respectful way to do it. There's the right way to do it. But I think it's, as a leader and as a boss, or as a foreman, or if there's any message I would want to tell any business leader out there, is it's really important to show your appreciation and appreciate the people, but it's doubly important to tell them, because they're not going to get it unless you tell them. Like, you know what I mean? And unless you set very clear expectations, like, this is your job, and this is what a win looks like, and this is what a failure looks like. I think it's way more important to uh, really, really communicate expectations, and the youth is no different.
It's interesting because as you were talking here, and I was just thinking about this whole blue collar and the social media behind it, and the kind of like the success, if you will, behind highlighting who these people are. Because that's essentially what this is all about, right? Highlighting who these people are and showing that they're good people, and this is something we can be proud of. There's like a hidden message of hope, and maybe that's what's missing so often, is like this message of believing in yourself rather than believing in all of this made up crap that you can see elsewhere. Like, you believe in yourself, and like I've told my children, okay, so now if you're believing in yourself, in order to maintain that belief, you have to go act on it, right? You can't just believe in something and not participate in it. I can't believe that blue collar work is fulfilling work and just sit on the sidelines and believe that. I have to go experience it, right? Once I've experienced it, now I can really believe it, and that can build upon itself, and pretty soon, by golly, I've got some success behind it, right? So how that message of hope, or that message of inspiration, like, no, we're talking about you at home right now, who have been playing COD on your phone all evening, or whatever else these kids do, as their
Right.
parents are out at the gala that they need to do to maintain their CPA, whatever the deal is, right?
Right.
And the
Right.
kids are stuck at home. No, like, I'm talking to you. Go believe in yourself, go try it. And once you do that first weld, once you do that first panel build, once you do the first plumbing job, whatever it is, you're going to feel something. And then that's going to build upon itself. And then you're going to keep trying to get better and better and better. And by the way, I hope you're never the best, because
Right.
as soon as you're
Right.
the best, you've just lost out on hope. And we
Right.
can't stop having that hope and that inspiration to do better. So I think that's a little hidden thing that we don't even realize, maybe, as we're out talking, that you're right, that we've stolen that from our kids. I think it's hard to define what success is in my eyes. I don't know what success looks like. I think it's different for everybody, and therefore I'm just not so willing to say somebody's been successful or they haven't. But I think when we're acting upon our passion, when we're seeing some fruits come from it, to me that's a sign of success. So you're 3.5 years in, and you kind of started. Your wife pushed you, and you did the right thing by listening to her. Maybe more of us need to do that. And you got a good waiting list, and folks are coming through, and you're seeing some graduates. Is there any story that sticks out of a graduate who, after he leaves, he calls you back and he's like, dude?
Oh yeah, yeah. And you, absolutely. So the hope. I'm really glad you brought that up, because um, Teddy Roosevelt's got an incredible speech, and he talks about the man in the arena, and there's a line in there that he talks about this man who's actually in the arena. I don't know if you've heard it or not, but and he talks about the dust and the blood and the sweat, and but he spends himself in a worthy cause, and I think that's that common link that as a blue collar the blue collar people, we know that we are spending ourselves in a worthy cause, because when I die, I don't want this body to be in pristine condition. I mean, I want to take care of it, you know what I mean, and nurture it along, but I want it used up. I want it. I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to die. I want to spend myself in a worthy cause, but I want it to be worthy, and that's what I feel like. A lot of blue collar people don't maybe even 100% understand that or realize that, but they're spending themselves in a worthy cause, and it's really really powerful. And then there's another thing that really comes to mind is and I forgot who said this, but if you believe you can, you can, and if you believe you can't, you are right. And it's as simple as that. It's believing in it and going out there and taking action, getting off the couch, putting the video game controller down, go out there and make something of yourself. And you can. I dropped out of high school at 16 years old. And to your point, what is success, right? I don't know. I think society measures it from a money perspective, which is really really shallow. It shouldn't. That success should be more of a fulfilling thing. There should be other metrics. Now, money is just an easy way to measure it, but um, you know, I think that really, when it comes down to the graduates, we have some golden rules, and they're posted in the school all over the place, and we're really really serious about it. We have a three-strike policy. If you violate the golden rules, and I hate rules. I'm not a rule person. I'm continually getting in trouble for speeding because I hate. I'm just who I am. I'm not gonna sugarcoat something, but so I don't like putting rules out there, but we've got a few, right? And we've got to follow them, and that's what kind of brings society together, and is the trust that we're all gonna kind of follow the rules, if you will, right? But the first time we're going to talk to you about it. If you violate the golden rules, we're going to talk to you about it. The second time, we're going to send you home for 3 days. And the third time, we're going to ask you to leave and you're not coming back. Right. And uh, sometimes that can be hard. Right. And I talk to our instructor teams and they're like, they're kind of down, beat down, like, man, I sent 7 of them home today for 3 days, second violation of golden rules. I'm like, hey, these people will call you in a year, because it happens every single week. We get a phone call from one of these guys thanking us. And at some, I remember one phone call, uh, um, he was almost mad at me. Like, he's like, it's way easier out here than you made it sound, and I said, that's because you're a rock star, right? We were way harder on you. We held you this really high standard, and almost to the point where I worry that they'll lose hope. Like, can I actually make it in the real world? But then when they get there and they realize we held them to this insanely high standard, oh man, they're so grateful, right? And um, it, that particular boy, he said, when I took my weld test, he went to a powerhouse. He said, when I took my weld test, the QC, quality control, he was an old man. He said, he told, and it was 2 of our students went to this job together. Um, he told us that we were the best welders on the job, which is
On day one.
incredible on day one, right? Yeah. So it's really powerful, and it's hard at times where you're, hey, I got to send you home. You violated golden rules. This is the second time, right? And you see them head down, got their tail between their legs, they're walking out, but it's for their own good, it's for their own benefit, and they do call. I promise you, it's powerful to see that, like when they
That's
come back and
awesome.
they're like, yeah, yeah.
Well, and
So
what's really cool about it is it kind of highlights, Tyler, how easy life really is if we go out and we follow those, things about being work ethic and being accountable and having some integrity behind us. You automatically will be the best in your field. And now to elevate from there, we get back to the skills and how good are you at that actual weld? How quickly can you do it? How much money are you making your employer? Those types of things come, but not until you've gotten those first few things and you rise right to the top, and now you're competing against a guy who has all that experience, and it's good. That's a little bit more difficult one to compete against, right? But that guy might not have these 3 qualities, and if you have them, you're going to rise above them, because you've been in business, I'm in business, I've talked to business leaders. That's what we're looking for. We're not looking for someone who, yeah, in all honesty, anyone can pull that heavy wire across that location. That's not really what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is the guy who finds inspiration in getting that wire from there to there, because he knows that that's how the president is actually getting the jet fuel that he needs, or even the crazy climate czar, or whatever
right,
that does that flies around that
right,
something that I probably shouldn't call him. But there's I want that guy who understands that
yeah,
piece, and he understands that if I'm not here at 7 a.m., I'm holding up on the other 2 guys that are also pulling the wire with me, and that's not right. That's the guy
right.
that we're looking for, right? So I think that's really cool to hear that those kids call you back and thank you for it, and they should. That's absolutely the kind of people that rise to the top. I know you're a busy guy, Tyler, and I just want to say thanks for everything you're doing for the blue collar workforce. And I think as many people as we can, I don't care what industry you're in within this blue collar workforce, but we owe it to the world to get out there and highlight who these people are and show them off, because they're humble people. They ain't gonna do it themselves.
Right.
They're not the kind of Facebookers who are out there, taking a
Right.
picture of themselves in the trench. It's just not who they are. So it's pretty cool that there's folks out there doing it for them. And I think the whole idea of having a trade school started up. And where's this at? Gillette, Wyoming, the
Yeah,
trade school.
yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah.
it's just such an incredible journey that needs to be continued to be told. And I hope the community there, they must have wide open arms. They're embracing this idea of Western Welding
Yeah,
Academy.
yeah. I know when we first fired up the college, the local community college, um, they were pretty anti Western Welding Academy. We had some opposition, more from you know uh, the elitist kind of holier than thou kind of people, but you know. over and over, we've been able to prove out, what we're here to do, what we're, what our why really speaks for itself. And now they love it, right? Because 98% of our students, they all come from out of state, and they come here, they get their training, they spend their money here, and then they go back to their home state, or in some cases another state, to go to work. So yeah, the community, the state, the town has really, really embraced us. They've been great. They weren't necessarily in the beginning, but sometimes you just got to keep showing up until they until they get it, right? So
You said we're in a war, and when we're in a war, sometimes the leader has to make tough decisions. And it's like I was visiting with one of our guys in a shop the other day, and I was trying to get him to understand this particular thing that I wanted done. And after several minutes of conversation, I finally just said, "Hey, you do trust me, right?" Well, yeah, of course I trust you. I said, "Okay, I have to run now. I got other things to do. So because you're going to trust me, you're just going to do this, and then someday you're going to come back, and we'll talk about if it was a successful move or not, right?" Well, the very next morning, I happened to go out there and say good morning, and he pulled me aside and he said, "That was our guys love it." And it was just a movement issue to get
sure.
some more floor room, right? And it was in his head, it wasn't an efficient thing, and I was done discussing it. And
Right.
but that's what leadership looks like sometimes, is you have a bigger scope that you're watching over, and the gentleman that might be, the second in line, he might not see everything you do, and he's just got to roll with you. So yeah, I'm glad you didn't let that stop you, because in a war we fight battles, and it's one battle after another that's fought. So as a leader and as a general in a war, to use your analogy, because we're in this war, you only got a few minutes before people are heading out to battle, boy. What's your message to these young ones? And by the way, we didn't have time to get into it, but I bet it's not only young ones. I bet you got some 40-year-olds in there too that are coming through
Yeah.
there, who all of a sudden realize their whole life has been 20 years into their career. They're like, "Oh crap, I made a mistake." But these guys are going out to battle. We got things to do. What's your message? What's your departing message to all these folks?
Yeah, I think this nation was founded on incredibly brave people, and these were not people that waited around for somebody else to they got off the couch, they got out the door, whatever it was, they got to work. And success comes from doing the hard stuff. Pull yourself outside of your comfort zone and believe it. The only person that holds you back is you. Don't hold you back. That's the kind of the essence of my mentality. That's what I believe in. You can accomplish anything if you believe it. And that's about all I got,
And
honestly.
I think it's a good. That's exactly what we need to hear, is start believing in yourself. Tyler, I appreciate your time on this podcast. We're gonna have to do this again. We'll check in another year and see how much that waiting list has grown and how far Western Welding Academy has gone. But either way, I've told some of our team that sometimes you got to just break it down. We can't change the world sometimes, but we can change ourselves, and we can change those people right around us. So even if it's only 300 people, it's 300 more people than what we started with, right?
Right, right. Throw a rock into a pond. What it's hard to imagine the ripple effect that rock has as it works its way out. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thanks for your time. It was good.